In 2004, MTV introduced the world to Pimp My Ride, a reality show hosted by rapper Exhibit, who would choose one lucky contestant to receive a custom upgrade to their existing vehicle. While the over-the-top nature of these customizations made the show a global success, behind the scenes, the show's creators have been embroiled in accusations of fraud, criminal labor violations, and even murder. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and leave a comment to let us know what other reality show horror stories you'd like to hear about. Yo, dog, we heard you like Weird History, so we put our YouTube channel in your car so you can listen while you drive. Or, you can watch it at work or school in the bathroom. If you're too young or too old to have watched the show when it aired, Pimp My Ride brought contestants down to West Coast Customs in Corona, California, or Gilpin Auto Sports in Van Nuys in later seasons, to have their broken-down old cars restored and customized with outrageous new features, meant to reflect the owner's personality. In one memorable episode, a 22-year-old film student by the name of Brooke Siegel got a drive-in movie theater projector installed in her rickety jalopy. And while you might be right to question exactly how much use Siegel would get out of such a feature, let alone how she'd be able to drive anywhere with it, the reality of this reality show contestant didn't hold up to scrutiny. As it turned out, Brooke Siegel was not a film student, nor was she 22. At the time she filmed the episode, Siegel was a 25-year-old cocktail waitress. Her storyline of being a film buff saving up for graduate school was completely fabricated by the show's producers. You mean they're not telling the truth on television? Even the home in which Exhibit came to visit Siegel was fake. She revealed that the house wasn't her own, but was rented by the producers because it looked better on camera. Siegel claims to have filmed her reaction to seeing her souped-up set of the wheels 10 times before ever actually laying eyes on it. When she did finally see it, she was anything but excited. She later described the car as Barbie's dream car from hell, calling out its ugly neon pink and turquoise paint job, as well as its unwieldy video projector and popcorn machine. Seth Martino, a so-called candy enthusiast, claims producers concocted the story about him having a sweet tooth and leaving candy wrappers littered about his car. I know I'm fat, Martino later said on Reddit, but they went the extra mile to make me look extra fat by telling the world that I kept candy all over my seat and floor, just in case I got hungry, then gave me a cotton candy machine in my trunk. Martino's experience might be the only time anyone has ever been bullied by a custom car. And when contestant Jake Glazier saw his pimped-out 1986 Buick Century, his reaction apparently didn't make for good television. Glazier later told the Huffington Post that he was given a subtle, intimidating pep talk by Big Dane, one of West Coast Customs' more colorful employees. He claims Big Dane walked him around the shop for several minutes, emphasizing how much work they'd put into his car and how freaking enthusiastic he should be in return. Big Dane's alleged choice of words was much stronger, but you get the idea. Glazier got the idea too, and the world was gifted with his meme-ified reaction. As if threatening him to be more excited wasn't enough, Glazier further claims producers encouraged him to break up with his girlfriend. Their rationale was that a single guy in desperate need of having his car officially pimped to pick up women would make for a much better episode. And that may have been true, depending on whether you think creepy and sad is entertaining. While having a cotton candy machine in your trunk or a pop-up champagne bar in your back seat may seem like questionable but fun ideas, the truth is they were only designed to work while the cameras were rolling. For example, the cotton candy machine in Martino's car was constructed without a lid, rendering it all but useless. Unless, of course, you enjoy detailing your car with layers of spun sugar and tons of ants. And the champagne bar, which could have been seen as an implicit endorsement of drinking and driving, was promptly removed after filming. Producers realized that if the car or its owner wound up in a DUI crash, they might be held legally responsible. There's some deep thinking. It would have been hard to deny that they had installed that mobile bar, considering they had done it on television in front of millions of witnesses. In addition to having his 1989 Nissan Maxima outfitted with a useless cotton candy machine, Martino told the Huffington Post that the show also had to remove the bodacious gull-wing doors they'd installed because the pistons required to lift the doors prevented them from installing seatbelts in the back seat. While that is unsafe, it's a small price to pay for a car that looks like it was part of a massive cocaine debt. Martino also couldn't use the LED lights that were installed in the vehicle's seats, which would get so hot he was concerned they might burn people or start a fire. And that cool-looking robotic arm wasn't hardwired into the car at all. but controlled by a guy typing commands into a laptop just off screen, meaning it was nothing more than a TV prop. Meanwhile, Brooke Siegel had to get her theater projector removed immediately after filming because it was not even close to street legal. Now you may be wondering why Siegel, Martino, and several other contestants didn't just sell their cars to collectors after the show turned them into flashy, undrivable paperweights. Sorry, chum. Pimp My Ride was way ahead of you. Since the conceit of the show was that contestants were being given their dream car, the producers didn't want these personalized rides ending up on eBay. To avoid this embarrassing inevitability, each contestant's contract stipulated that they were not allowed to sell their cars. Period. However, Siegel found a particularly clever workaround. She filed paperwork at the DMV to officially gift the car to her boyfriend. He then sold it for $7,500.
Action.
According to one of the rules of Hollywood movie making, you only build what the camera will see. Everything else is just a waste of time and money. West Coast Customs took this adage to heart, routinely skipping mechanical issues and focusing on flashy gimmicks like terrariums, CAT scan machines, and barbecue coffins. Yeah, that's right, a barbecue coffin. The mid-2000s were a wild time. Less glamorous issues like broken transmissions, engines, or brakes often got overlooked. So many of the pimped-out cars either wouldn't start or stalled out on the drive home. This happened so often that MTV had a flatbed tow truck on call at all times. Seth Martino claims to have spent $1,700 out of pocket to replace his engine shortly after having his car pimped. Jake Glazier's Buick needed a new muffler, but instead of replacing the muffler, the team at West Coast Customs added a fake exhaust pipe to make it appear that the rumbling sound of the car was actually intentional. That's like going to the hospital for an eye injury and the doctor handing you a pirate costume. And while the show made it seem like these custom jobs were completed in a matter of days, contestants claim they often took months, forcing them to find alternate means of transportation at their own expense while waiting for their dream car. Despite the lies, coercion, and mechanical failures, most contestants look back on Pimp My Ride with fond memories. However, the same cannot be said of those doing the pimping. Mauricio Hernandez, a former West Coast Customs employee, told NPR that during his 5 years working at the auto shop for Pimp My Ride, he would routinely work 60 to 70 hours a week for no overtime pay or benefits, all for below minimum wage. The shop seems to have preferred to hire undocumented workers like Hernandez because they are easily exploitable. They fear they can't complain or report labor issues to authorities because they were employed illegally. In 2014, the United States Department of Labor found that West Coast Customs had violated the Fair Labor Standards Act by not keeping proper records of employee hours worked, coercing unpaid overtime, paying below minimum wage, and falsely classifying their on-site exclusive long-term employees as independent contractors, all illegal practices under United States law. West Coast Customs founder Ryan Friedlinghaus chose not to fight the findings in court and instead opted to pay $157,592 in back wages to employees and $16,830 in civil penalty fines. When Entertainment Scoop asked Friedlinghaus what it took to be a West Coast Customs employee, he indicated the two best qualities were working unscheduled overtime and doing whatever we asked them to do. So that's what an asshole sounds like. Meanwhile, Hernandez told NPR that his biggest regret about working those crazy hours was that he missed out on his kid's childhood. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, West Coast Customs is now in full compliance with state and federal law. But Friedlinghaus wasn't the only person affiliated with Pimp My Ride who ran afoul of the law. In early April of 2010, Pimp My Ride co-creator and executive producer Bruce Beresford Redman took his wife, Monica Burgos, and their two small children on a vacation to the Moon Palace in Cancun, Mexico. Monica was the owner of the popular Zabumba bar and restaurant in Los Angeles, and the family trip was partially to celebrate her 42nd birthday. Unfortunately, that birthday never came. Monica's asphyxiated body was found on April 8, 2010 in a gutter near the hotel. Later that day, Beresford Redman was taken into custody and questioned by Mexican authorities. He was soon released, but told he was a person of interest in his wife's death and ordered not to leave Mexico. Despite having his passport confiscated, Beresford Redman left the country anyway, crossing the border with his two small children and hopping a train to Los Angeles. Which, side note, is not the kind of thing you should do if you're the prime suspect in your wife's murder.
I didn't kill my wife! I don't care!
after a young British couple testified to hearing him and his wife arguing in their hotel room days before the murder. Coupled with scratches that had been noted on his hands and neck, authorities issued an arrest warrant, and Beresford Redmond was extradited back to Mexico to stand trial. Prosecutors determined several possible motives, suggesting he may have murdered his wife to collect insurance money or to carry an extramarital affair and gain sole custody of their children. On March 12, 2015, Bruce Beresford Redmond was convicted for the murder of Monica Burgos and sentenced to 12 years in prison. Beresford Redmond has always maintained his innocence. He claimed that evidence against him had been contaminated in police custody and that Mexican authorities, eager to keep Cancun a popular tourist destination, rushed to convict him to cover up the city's rampant problem with random crime. Bruce was released from prison on good behavior after serving only 7.5 of his 12-year sentence. In an ironic twist of fate, the disgraced television producer had a television show produced about him, an episode of 48 Hours, titled Fatal Episode: The Producer's Story. In the mid-aughts, Pimp My Ride was a global phenomenon, launching adaptations like Pimp My Ride UK, Pimp My Ride Baltic, and Indonesia's Pimp My Car. There were multiple Pimp My Ride video games, and spin-offs including Pimp My Fahrrad, the German word for bicycle, Pimp My Room in the Netherlands, and Brazil's Pimp My Feed, in which contestants learn to gain maximum Instagram followers from top social media influencers. It remains to be seen whether Pimp My Ride's behind-the-scenes trouble will eventually eclipse fans' fond memories of what was, at its core, a lighthearted and intentionally absurd show. But for now, rest assured that you've officially been pimped. So what do you think? Does it matter how real Pimp My Ride was? Tell us why or why not in the comments below. And while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.